Crime in the United Kingdom. Nowhere in the world is absolutely safe. Regardless of how efficient the security situation of a country is, it will have its own fair share of crime. The United Kingdom is not spared. Historically speaking, it has what can be considered a normal relationship with crime, not having it rougher. The crime rate there hasn't been among the worst in the UK. When the rates across the 4 nations in the United Kingdom are compared with the rest of first world countries, it can even be said that the crime rate is low. Data source. We need to analyse facts obtainable from several sources to be able to define the crime situation in the United Kingdom. It's important to note that when talking about crime statistics in the United Kingdom, reference will be made to the data collected in the UK as a whole, as well as those collected by the individual areas, namely England and Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Meanwhile, the most reliable source of information would be data from the Office for National Statistics. It is also noteworthy to add that describing the situation of crime in the United Kingdom will also rely to an extent on the report by the police. However, the police-recorded data on crime are not a national statistic. They only give a good insight into the crime-related challenge the police have, even though it's not the most reliable measure of all crime. Why? Challenges in compiling the crime data. It's difficult to compare crime rates as reported by the police with the reality on the ground. You may find a lot of discrepancies and discover that those reports don't reflect the true situation on the ground. One factor that makes police recording unreliable is the unwillingness of victims and eyewitnesses to report crimes they experienced or saw. Another challenge is the inaccuracy of the reports by the eyewitnesses, especially when the victims that can set the record straight don't survive such crimes. Even when victims report, the accompanying trauma may affect the accuracy of numbers, time, and description of the crime. Victims are also reluctant to report certain crimes because they're considered too trivial or embarrassing to either the victims or the perpetrators, which in many cases are close relatives and friends. Some are not comfortable dealing with the police, while others are afraid of the repercussions by the perpetrators. Crimes are underreported also because the police too sometimes fail in the documentation of crimes reported to them. For instance, the officer in charge may not accept the claim of a victim of crime. They do this often when the cases being presented to them seem to lack logic, unbelievable, or otherwise untenable without confession or what the cops could hold as solid evidence. A worse and skankier reason for underreporting is the police attempt to deliberately refuse to record a crime in order to save time, cost, and investigation steps. They may also do this to manipulate performance figures for their area because of pressure to perform and other factors. There was a particular year when over 19% of crimes reported to the police were not recorded. 25% of sexual crimes and over 30% of violent crimes were not reported. Many senior officers have later admitted to having fiddled with figures for their areas by writing off certain crimes. Sometimes there's a lack of uniformity in how police forces record notifiable offences. You need to appreciate the fact that reporting is not consistent across local forces. While in a few forces, crime recording is standardised and their statistics can be trusted, in some other forces, reporting is unacceptable and terrible. Criminal justice systems in the UK. Beyond that, the criminal justice and judicial systems in the UK differ from region to region. England and Wales. There are 2 kinds of criminal trials in England and Wales, namely summary and on indictment. Depending on the person involved, criminal matters may be heard in either magistrates' courts or the Crown Court. Of course, all serious criminal cases start from the magistrates' court. Because of this process, the complexion and nature of a criminal case may change as the case moves from court to court, and during prosecution and defence, its seriousness may have increased or reduced. Scotland. In Scotland, the lowest level of criminal courts is the Justice of the Peace Courts. While they're in the same level as the magistrates' courts in England and Wales, their powers are more restricted. For instance, the Scottish Peace Courts can pass a prison sentence of not more than 60 days. The Sheriff Court, which is the main criminal court, can be conducted when there are summary cases or solemn cases. In the summary cases, which are considered less serious crimes, a judge known as sheriff may preside alone. But in the solemn cases, which are more serious, a jury trial will be required. The High Court is the highest criminal court in Scotland, and it is where the trial court for the most serious crimes, such as murder, and an appeal court for other criminal cases are heard. Northern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, less serious criminal cases go to magistrates' courts. In more serious criminal cases, the courts conduct only preliminary hearings. There is the Crown Court also in Northern Ireland, where more serious criminal cases are heard. At the top of the criminal justice system in Northern Ireland is the Lord Chief Justice of Northern Ireland. The country has a Department of Justice, which is responsible for the administration of the courts and the tribunal service throughout Northern Ireland. It's also responsible for policy and legislation about criminal law, the police, prisons, legal aid policy and probation. Crime Rate Summary. The information presented about the crime data source, challenges in compilation and the criminal justice system will assist in putting any summary of crime rates in the right perspective. The figures here are based on two main sources of crime data, namely the Crime Survey for England and Wales, CSEW, and the Police Record of Crimes. Available records show that the crime rate in the United Kingdom declined or remained broadly stable between 2019 and 20 and 2020 and 21. And it's been steady in recent years following a long-term reduction. Please note, however, that the stability we're witnessing in the current year in overall levels of crime hides some variation in individual crime types. In England and Wales, there was a reduction from 89.8 crimes per 1,000 people to 77.6. The crime rate in Scotland remained at 45.1 per 1,000 people, while the crime rate of Northern Ireland fell from 56.2 to 49.8 crimes per 1,000 people. As you can see, the crime rate in England and Wales during this period has been the highest in the United Kingdom. Scotland's crime rate improved the most as it fell from 82.6 crimes per 1,000 people in 2002-3 to just 45.1 by 2019 and 20. In 2019 and 20, the police in the United Kingdom recorded about 6.43 million crimes. That was the highest figure since the 2006 and 7 crime year, where they were appropriately 5.97 million. Should we have to go by that figure alone, we should say there is an overall rise in crime records. In fact, there were just 4.4 million crimes recorded in 2013 and 14, after which there had been a year-on-year increase in rates based on the police record. The remote cause. While many factors account for the increase in the crime rates, some analysts have incriminated austerity. How could that be? Following the 2010 general election, the UK government adopted a fiscal policy that focused on reducing public spending across almost all government agencies and departments. Thus, government spending on the police service fell from £19.3 billion to £16.35 billion between 2009 and 10 and 2013 and 14. Subsequently, police response to crime and proactiveness reduced. The number of police officers also declined by about 20,000 during the same period. This also partly explains why police figures are not reliable as the main source of data about crime rates in the UK. Homicides. In 2020 and 21, 119 homicide offences were recorded in London, this being the highest of any region of the UK during that period. This was followed by figures from North West England, which includes Manchester with 112 homicides. However, in England and Wales, there was a 6% decrease in the overall number of homicides. Use of knives and sharp instruments. In almost half of all murders during this period, a knife or other sharp instrument was used. This became the most common method of killing in the year being reported. This represented a 7% increase in the number of offences involving knives or sharp objects. In England and Wales, the overall number of crimes involving the use of knives decreased between 2010 and 2014. It increased again between 2014 and 2019 and eventually reached almost 23,000 offences in 2019. Conclusively, it could be said crime in the United Kingdom is under control. The fact that figures are available in different government departments shows that crime can't just be perpetrated. Encouragingly, based on the rates we have, the United Kingdom is among the safest countries. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment and turn on the notification bell.